Hello friends, Charlie Murphy here. Thank you for choosing my video. Today I'm playing a session of 1-2 No Limit 6 Max games on Ignition, and my games are already up and running, so we'll jump right into the action. Lower left-hand table, recreational player limps the button. I check in my big blind with 5-4 suited. Face a pretty healthy size bet, pretty close to pot, or about 2/3 in this limp pot here. I'll check call with my small flush draw on ace, ace, jack, two-tone. Look to bluff the river if it checks through, which it does. Try to fold him off any kind of high cards that beat 5 high. That one works. Seen a lot of shorter, funky stacks in the game, lots of open limping. I suspect the games are pretty good right now here on a Saturday afternoon on a holiday weekend. But we'll see what happens. Lower left-hand table, opening 9s from the button. Big blind comes along for a call. Go ahead and bet range after he checks to me. I do have second pair on ace 8-3 and the relevant 9 of clubs in my hand on that monotone flop. Must they be checking back turns unless I bink a third 9? Get check raised and check raised to a reasonably small size. I've got to call about 5 into 13. I've got second pair and I've got that club in my hand, so I can't go anywhere to one bet, though he can probably bully me off with some subsequent bets that get larger. Let's see. Decent card for me is hard for him to have an ace that beats me and he goes ahead and checks. I'll gladly check back and try to get to the river. Upper right-hand table, get a bet for about pot on 9-4-2. I do have bottom pair in this limp pot. I'll call at least once. He's going to let me showdown my 9s. I'll take it. And I'm against the full house. He checked twice trying to trap me, which is not necessarily unreasonable, but I did not fall for it as I had a decent bit of showdown value there. And I'm not really folding that trip aces there with the bluff either, so I think the showdown is very standard there if he lets me. Probably shouldn't have checked to me twice there and let me get that hand to showdown for so cheap, but I see what he's thinking. Against the second bet here, let's see here. This guy is kind of fishy and short. He's betting half pot. The board stayed low and it paired. I'm going to go ahead and continue calling. It's about the best possible river I could have asked for, giving me a pair. He bets a little less than half pot. I'm going to go ahead and just bluff catch this now. What's against pocket 5, so I needed the river to get me there. Lower right-hand table, recreational player, open limps, middle position. I isolate from the button with something like my cutoff open range. And I get 3-bet by the blind. However, I will get out of the way. Upper right-hand table will open Jack 10 blind on blind. Lower right-hand table, open 8-7 suited from the cutoff. Upper right-hand table in the blind battle, my Jack 10 gets 3-bet, and while I'll defend 3-bets very wide in this loose formation, Jack 10 offsuit is just going to be very hard to play for a call or for a 4-bet, so I'm just going to get out of the way instead. Upper right-hand table, recreational player limps the cutoff. I'll isolate from the button with ace-4 suited using something like a standard cutoff open range. Lower right-hand table, my 8-7 suited gets 3-bet in position and cold 4-bet, and I am just going to quickly muck that hand against that action. Limper limp calls, get a Jack 7-7 rainbow board. He checks to me. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet, mostly be checking turns. He check calls. Decent turn for me as I have some showdown value, just outdrew better ace high. I'll go ahead and check that one back. Really only betting hands that I want to get all in here, so strong jacks are better. Here with some showdown value and no real reason to bluff. Now he goes ahead and blasts for pot. Just going to go ahead and give him credit there with the size up. Against a smaller size, half pot, 2/3 against the rec, I can go ahead and hero call that. But against that size up, I think it should be a pretty clear fold as they start to get a little bit less bluff heavy as that size gets up around pot. Plus, I've got a pretty weak bluff catcher as bluff catchers go. As far as absolute value of the hand goes with the weakest pair on the board. And also block his ace high that he may check call and decide to blast the river with. Upper left-hand table, open kings under the gun. Called by the cutoff. He hasn't seemed particularly fishy or recreational yet, though he is calling from a position where cold calling is discouraged to a large extent. So we'll keep an eye on that. I will check range to him in position. Nice clean board for the king. 6 deuce deuce two-tone. I do have the heart blocker in my hand as well. He goes ahead and stabs for half pot. I think I actually want to play this out of the check raise line here on a board where so many overpairs can be considering themselves to be good here. I can also be check raising with backdoor flush draws or even regular front door flush draws as well. I'm going to go ahead and put in the check raise here. If he has 6 as full or ace deuce, so be it. Get the call. Turn is a 6, double pairing card. Let me see here. I probably want to slow down in that I don't have a ton of 6x, especially in the check raise line. My ace deuce is a pretty small part of my range and is no longer nearly as strong as it's now bottom both, and I really can't be barreling the flush draws. I'm going to check this card a very high percentage of the time. Not that I'm folding the kings there. If I guess 6x or deuce x now beats me. He goes ahead and stabs for half pot. I think the move is just to go ahead, check call, check the river. River is a 10. Now he goes and he blasts about 2/3, 3/4, and this is just going to be a straightforward check call. Trying to decide if there's any reason to check raise here. I don't know that check raising is going to be too good. I mean, I can be check raising into a 6 or a deuce a decent bit of the time, but I will gladly call down here with the king. He had a 6. He had a miracle turn card, but that's the way the game goes. I think my play is fine. My strategy was fine. Just got an unfortunate turn card. Most other blanks I get to keep barreling and put a ton of pressure on his 6x there that finds itself in a tricky spot. And I do think flatting ace 6 suited in that position is a little bit questionable, so we'll go ahead and put a note on this guy as well. Lower right-hand table, 3x open, blind on blind. King 5 a little loose to be defending. Pretty close. You could go ahead and raise it occasionally. I think folding's a little bit better. Lower left-hand table, we're facing a 2.2x open out of the middle position. Recreational player goes ahead and flats on the button. I'm going to be squeezing with my ace-king. Pop it up to about 12 blinds. Betting a nice linear range here of, mid-pocket pairs and higher suited broadways, ace-queen or better, and a couple of wheel aces, something like that. Ace-king, of course, very clearly in that 3-bet range. And the squeeze gets through. Lost my Rex on a couple of these tables, but I can go look for some more. Upper right-hand table is opening ace-9 suited from the button. A tight passive player on the lower left-hand table opens to 3x, and then a fishy player in the big blind pops him up to 7. Interesting spot here. I think I probably want to be stacking off with queens or better here as opposed to maybe jacks like I usually would in this formation, just because these guys are a bit on the passive side. Trying to decide if I want to put this into the 4-bet fold range or not. I think I probably can. It's close. Gonna go ahead and put in that small 4-bet. Right on the cusp. You could go either way. I don't think it makes a big difference if you fold this or cold 4-bet here. I think it's a pretty close spot. Calls. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet here on Queen 6-4 two-tone. Turn is an offsuit king. Now I've got sets of kings, sets of queens. I've got ace-king. I've got aces. Got hands like king-queen, king-jack, king-10 suited. Tens is actually just about my worst hand here, other than ace-jack, ace-10, which do have gut shots and overcards. Go ahead and check. Now he goes and blasts for half pot, and I think tens are an easy fold, given I've just got so many better hands in my range, and I just don't know that he's going to be all that weak, given that he's passive pre-flop, 3-bets, and calls a cold 4-bet, and now he's stabbing on the turn. I'll go ahead and fold that one out. Lower right-hand table, blind on blind, to defend with 4 deuce suited. I get check 2 on 8-6 deuce. I'll go ahead and stab small with my bottom pair, backdoor flush draw. Upper left-hand table, a rec limps under the gun. I'll isolate from the button with queen 9 suited using something like a cutoff open range. Rec limps calls, get a queen 5-4 rainbow flop. I'll go ahead and put in the small range bet with my middling top pair. Quickly get check called. Turn is a 3 that completes the rainbow. Also makes low straights possible to hands like 6-7 or ace deuce. I think I want to have some hands, some top pairs that will continue betting, some that will check. I think queen 9, given that it's going to also be way behind better queen X type hands. Rather keep the pot a bit smaller here. I'll put this in the check back line, plenty to pick off river leads or value bet in an under rep line. He leads into me for about pot. I prefer it was a bit smaller size here, but I'm not folding top pair here in that line. He's got essentially the nuts on the turn, the open ender for 6-7 offsuit. Don't know that limp calling that, then check calling with the 7 high draw is necessarily a great play. I'd like to see a check raise on the flop, or a fold or limp fold pre-flop. But, you know, he's a recreational player. He does silly things. Lower right-hand table, opening 5s from middle position. Blind on blind, lower left-hand table, got a limper. I'm going to go ahead and pop him up with queen 4 suited. Pop him up with something like my button open range, including most of my suited queens. Lower right-hand table, a middle position open, gets 3-bet by the big blind. Going to go ahead and fold my pocket 5s versus that. Lower left-hand table, the rec limp calls. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet in position after he checks on the flop. Face a minimum check raise. I've got some very weak equity here, such as drawing to a 3 for an open ender or a queen for top pair. I'm going to go ahead and call that. Plus, I just think that is such a weak sizing that he just absolutely clicks it back there at an already small bet. I get a great return for me, the offsuit queen giving me top pair. He leads into me for a little less than half pot. Gladly call that down, get to the river. River not all that scary, an offsuit 7. I guess it does make some straights or 2 pairs possible that weren't already there. He goes ahead and checks, however. I'm going to go ahead and try to get some value with my turn queen, really targeting a hand like 10x or some kind of hand like ace 7, 7, 8 sort of thing. Let's go ahead and use a smaller, some more 2/3 type size. New player buying a little short over here on the lower left-hand table. Go ahead and get a tag on him. Same deal with the lower right-hand table and this player that's sitting short. Upper left-hand table, the button opens for 2.5x. I am in my big blind with king 9, which I can defend for a call and check range on the flop. Flop second pair, queen 9-8 on a nice, scary, coordinated board. Against the small bet, I will check call second pair at least once. Turn is the ace, mostly be check folding that card as I now have got third pair and no real draw or blocker to the straights that could be out there as well. I can have turned a variety of 2 pairs or at least top pairs on that card, or I can still have some weaker 2 pairs that check called the flop like Jack 8, 9, 8. Jack 9 I'd probably be check raising. There against that second barrel, just going to go ahead and fold. Not really check raising that card here, as I don't ace jack I don't even have because that's going to be 3-bet pre-flop. So my strongest hands on that turn card are going to be stuff like ace 9, ace 8, and I'd rather just put those into bluff catching lines. So not check raising there, not looking for check raise bluffs either, as I'm not check raising value on that particular card. You know, any flop straights I have are going to have check raised the flop by and large. Lower right-hand table looks like it's breaking here. Go ahead and open king 9 suited from the button. Lower left-hand table, button open limps. I check in my big blind with 8-3. Flop checks through. I'm going to go ahead and min bet the turn. I've got top pair on 8-6-5-5 double flush draw. He goes ahead and calls me. River is a jack. I'm not sure that I can really get enough value from a 6 here to justify betting. I don't know. Actually, I think betting is probably slightly better than checking against this guy. Pretty close either way. I guess he could have some busted draws that might stab the river. He rivered top pair with his busted straight draw. Upper left-hand table, get a 2.5x open under the gun, and we'll go ahead and 3-bet in the cutoff with ace-8 suited. 3-betting most of my suited aces, pocket 9s are better, ace-queen plus king-queen, and a couple of wheel aces here. Get called. Got second pair top kicker on Jack 10-9 Rainbow. He checks to me, so I'll go ahead and range bet in position. Mostly checking the turn, but there are some turn cards which are good for me where I'm going to want to start barreling and stuffing money in. Most notably the 10 or the ace, giving me 2 pair or top trips. I face a call. Turn is a offsuit 4 that puts a backdoor flush draw up there. He checks again. Now let's see here. I can continue betting with jacks, 10s, 9s, king, queen. I can also have hands like kings or queens that are going to want to bet at a high frequency. I can have hands like king jack, queen jack. I think I'd rather bet a hand like king jack than ace jack. I want to check back probably hands like ace jack, pocket aces, without the removal to the straight and a lot less runouts that are good for it. River is interesting. It's a offsuit 7 that puts 4 to the straight up there, though I shouldn't be a ton of 8x in his range, I wouldn't think. Trying to decide how much merit there is in bluff catching here should he lead into me. And I'll probably do it just because I hate folding. That's about 2/3. I mean, I guess hands like ace king, ace queen type stuff could be turned into bluffs. He is pretty aggressive with the as far as his post-flop aggression frequency goes, which means he's going to find more bluffs than most players would. 4 straight river, actually not all that bluffy. It's close, so I'm going to go ahead and call it. Top set, reasonably played, in my opinion. Let's see here, 3x open on the upper right-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and fold 8-5 suited in my big blind. Pretty close, but I think it's a fold. Lower left-hand table, recreational player limps middle position. I isolate from the cutoffs with pocket 7s using something like my middle position open range. He limp calls, get a king 9-3 two-tone board. We'll go ahead and put in a small range bet in position here against the check, mostly checking the turn unless I find that third 7. The ace of hearts is an interesting card, actually, to continue barreling on here. Let me think about this for a minute. I mean, I've got some queen jack offsuit there that can be bluffs. Although other than that, I don't have too many hearts in my range. I think I want to go ahead and just turn this hand into a bluff with the heart in hand. Upper right hand table, I can check back 4th heart rivers where I've got some showdown here against non-heart hands that call the turn. On blank rivers, I would put in another bluff there with my heart blocker. Upper right-hand table, I check range blind on the flop here. He checks back. I'll go ahead and lead the turn small. River bricks out. I've got unimproved king high. We'll go ahead and continue bluffing, try to fold him off some kind of 7x, pocket 5, something like that. Probably not going to be successful a whole lot, especially not against ace 10, but showing down king high there is not the move. Upper left-hand table, blind on blind. I will defend a 3x open with ace 9. Get let into for a small size, about 1/3 a pot on Queen 4-3. I will go ahead and call as the ace or nine are going to be decent cards, and such a small bet folding ace high just seems awful weak there. Pick up a weak gut shot on the offsuit deuce, completing the rainbow. He goes ahead and checks. Given that none of my outs are going to make for real strong hands where I want to be playing large bloated pots on the river, I'm content to check back. Rather be bluffing with hands like 5x, 6x type hands, no showdown, than ace-9 here. River is a 6, putting a 4 straight out there. It's not too likely he has a whole lot of 5x in his range here. I think he could probably lead the river as a bluff. I'm going to be frequently bluff raising here if he bets into me against that size. I think it's a good one to attack. For left-hand table, open ace-jack from middle position. Get 3-bet in position here. I'll go ahead and quickly fold the ace-jack versus that. Upper right-hand table, blind on blind. I will open 10-8, right on the cusp of an open, but a reasonable hand to open blind on blind. Get called by the big blind. I will check range to the in-position player. Great flop for me, 10-8-3 rainbow, giving me top 2 pair. He goes ahead and stabs for 2/3. We're going to go ahead and get that check raise in there. That larger size, go a little bit larger than half pot, go about 3x here. Lower right-hand table, opening ace-jack suited from under the gun. Upper right-hand table, queen deuce suited just outside of standard open range for me on the button. Pretty close, but could go either way with it. I prefer to fold, but I think opening's not going to be all that big a mistake, and there's some circumstances where it can be quite good. Lower left-hand table, recreational player open limps to cutoff. A small blind with about 11 blinds just jams all in. I'm in the big blind with ace-jack. I'm going to call that, thinking I'm well ahead of both the limping range and the shoving range. Limper folds out. I'm all in against king 10, who has me drawing virtually dead on the flop when he flops trip kings. But I think the call is fine, and I get my money in good. I just don't hold. No big. Upper left-hand table, the rec limps blind on blind. I'll check in with 8-7, take a flop. Got a gut shot on King 5-4 two-tone. He jams, or not jams, but he mashes the pot button, buck 90 or dollar 1.9 blinds into 1.9 blinds. I will float with my gut shot to the nuts in position. Lower right-hand table, open ace deuce blind on blind. Against the second barrel with the gut shot, I'll go ahead and fold to that larger size. If he bets smaller, I can float in position, getting a better price, plus I'm more inclined to think I can take it away on the river. Against that, I just think he's probably not as inclined to let me bluff him off. I'm not getting a good price to try to hit the gut shot either. Lower right-hand table, I'm going to check range to the big blind. On the flop. Lower left-hand table, the rec open limps the button. I'll complete the small blind with ace-5, check range on the flop. Flop checked around. I've got an open-ender and an overcard. I'm going to go ahead and stab for the minimum. Plan to follow through on the river. Lower right-hand table, the flop checks through. I'll stab with my overcard over there. And once again, plan to follow through on the river whether or not I hit that ace. Brick out on the upper right or left-hand table with players involved. I'm not going to showdown my high card. I'll go ahead and put in another bluff here on the river, try to fold them off. Some kind of busted spades, marginal pairs. They both quickly fold. Lower upper right-hand table, get 3-bet blind on blind. I can defend very widely in this loose formation. Go ahead and defend with pocket pairs out of position and check range on the flop. Pretty clean flop for sixes, 10 deuce deuce. He goes ahead and puts about a 1/3 continuation bet in. I will check call with my sixes on 10 deuce deuce and check the turn. Not a great turn card for me as he's got all the ace king. And I'm going to have folded a lot of my king X on the flop anyway. Against the second barrel, I think I can just go ahead and fold this. Thinking about what hands I do have here that are going to be pretty strong. Not really check raising on that card. They just don't see the need to. My ace deuce suited, my quad deuces. That's all going to just go ahead and stay in the trap line. I guess any king X I stumble into can also go in the check call bluff catch line as well. Games are good, but I can't get anything going thus far, but sure it'll turn around for me sooner or later. Player playing 27 blinds deep, open limps the cutoff. I'm in the small blind with nines. I'm going to raise him up with those pocket nines. Be very dependent on the kind of flop I get, but at least right now I got to feel pretty good about that hand. And I get re-raised by the big blind, a very small size. It's almost like a 4-bet type size here, like 2.2x in position. Let's see here. Against that, I think I can actually call with the nines and play a flop. I'll check fold on that king queen 7 board that came out. Got a couple of recreational players open limping on the upper right-hand table. I've got jacks in the small blind. We'll go ahead and pop those up. Using that large ISO size out of the blind, something like 1.5x of pot. The big blind calls, both the limpers fold. Get an 8-5-5 rainbow board. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet with my strong range featuring all the overpairs and a lot of overcards as well. Now he goes ahead and just essentially clicks it back, goes from 456 up to 10. I'm going to go ahead and call with my jacks. Now he goes ahead and quickly checks back the turn. I'm going to actually go for thin value with against like an 8x type hand here. And I got it. Lower left-hand table, got a recreational player limps. The cutoff isolates to 3.5. I pop them up to 12 with my queen-jack suited. The limper jams all in. I got to call 13.5 into 42.5. I'm calling with basically any two at that point. Racing against ace-deuce suited. He makes the nut flush, but I think my called on is okay. My 3-bet of the ISO is okay, and the called on for the price I'm getting is also okay. Lower right-hand table, I'm facing a 3x open from the button. I've got 10-6 suited in the big blind. I can go ahead and defend that. One of my weaker defense, but a reasonable defense all the same. Check range on the flop. Now he goes and he stabs for half pot. It's a 5-4 deuce rainbow board. I've got a gut shot to the 3. I've also got a backdoor flush draw. Prefer to be check raising against a slightly smaller size, but especially on the button against a half pot bet, I think it's going to be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and put in the check raise there with my gut shot backdoor flush draw. He comes along for the call. Interesting turn card, the 6. There's a 4 straight out there. I now have top pair. I'm going to slow down and check on that. Could be barreling if I would have hit, my straight or my backdoor flush draw. Continue checking here. Now he goes and he bets for 9 into 24. I think I just need to hero call that. Going to be getting valued a lot by something stronger. Yeah, he had 4s for a full house, but really not folding short on value to that small size. Upper left-hand table, open jacks under the gun. Get 3-bet by the small blind. 3-bet a pretty healthy size here. I can be stacking off with kings, aces, ace-king suited for a 4-bet. Going to use a lot of my continued defense range here as a call, including hands like queens, ace-king offsuit. Can also be calling with jacks here, jacks, 10s, and a few of the suited Broadway combos. This guy's probably a little bit more aggressive than typical. So can maybe call a few more suited Broadways, maybe pocket 9s type stuff. Go ahead and call. Jack's pretty straightforward call either way. Scary coordinated board, the 8-7-5 two-tone. He should probably be checking this board quite a bit, as he really shouldn't have any straights or any sets there in that 3-bet range. Those should all just be called pre-flop and not 3-bet out of the big blind. He checks, which I think is probably good. Given that I've got an overpair, I don't want to let the overcards peel for free. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small bet. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and check call the ace-9 against the 2 callers on the ace-queen-deuce two-tone. Got a recreational player stabbing in position. Now the recreational player also called. Keep stabbing. Let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and continue bluffing with my 10 high nonsense over there. Good river for me in that it's a lot harder for him to have me beat now. And my trip showdown good. Lower left-hand table, we got a 3 to the flush and 4 to the straight out there. I don't have too many relevant cards. I guess the 10 is good for me. I'm going to go ahead and check that back. Hands like ace-king, ace-queen that check called the flop, I am going to be ahead of here. I don't know that he's going to have as many overpairs, queens, kings, or aces in the check call line that also lead the river. So I think this is probably a pretty reasonable texture for bluff catching. He goes ahead and leads out for 2/3. He's very aggressive. I think we need to hero call this to try to pick off, yeah, ace, queen, ace, king. Especially against a player who's shown his ability to be aggressive. He did value bet somewhat thin that or 3-bet pot earlier with top set when a 4 straight banged off on the river. But finding a value bet with the set there is not nearly as difficult as, it's going to be a lot more likely than a guy finding a value bet with queens, kings, or aces in that particular line and board texture, I'm pretty sure. So I think my bluff catching gets better. It's just hard for him to have too many strong hands unless he check called and backed into a flush, but that's only a few combos. Lower left-hand table, get an open from middle position. I 3-bet my cutoff with ace-jack suited, get a cold call out of the blinds, and the RFI player calls as well. Upper right-hand table, going to check and try to induce a bluff here on that paired river. That 3-bet pot, the lower left-hand table, everyone checks twice. I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing at this. Get check raised by that small blind player, which means I am done with the hand. Get a limper from the cutoff in the lower left-hand table. I'm going to pop him up out of my blinds with queen-jack suited. And pick up that one uncontested as no one raises me back. Everyone just folds out, including the limper. I'll take it. Lower left-hand table, open ace-10 from under the gun with the dead small blind. Big blind comes along for a call. Dry Jack 6-6 rainbow board. I will go ahead and range bet small in position. Check raise small. Really can't fold at the small check raise here. Good turn card there, as I've got the backdoor nut flush blocker and I've got a gut shot as well. Can also possibly scare the jack a little bit if he check raised to jack. Lower right hand table, I'll open eights from middle position. I'll go ahead and check back, looking to hit that king or an ace. We'll just take the showdown, even though I think it's going to be a lot of Jack X. I just don't think the pairs are going to fall out nearly often enough to justify it. Got a good price to draw to my overcards. Upper right-hand table, got a 3x open from the button. Queen 4 suited right on the cusp of a defense against that, even without the caller. Plus, this guy's been kind of on the tight or the loose passive side. I'll go ahead and fold Queen 4. Lower left-hand table, got a raise and a re-raise. I will fold nines in my big blind. Lower right-hand table, limper from a middle position. I check in my big blind. Flop checks through. I'll go ahead and start stabbing at the turn, try to take it away. Lower right-hand table, opening king 9, blind on blind. Big blind calls. I'll check range on the flop here. He blasts for pot on Jack 7 deuce 2-tone. I've got no piece of it, including even a backdoor club draw. I will fold that. Lower right-hand table, opening Jack 10 suited under the gun. Upper left-hand table will open sevens under the gun. Recreational player calls the button. Exact kind of player I want in there with me when I've got something like a pocket pair looking to hit that set. Don't get it on ace queen 3. I check range, he quickly checks back, turned as an offsuit 9. I'm going to go ahead and start bluffing with my sevens. River 5 of hearts. I'm not going to overbet bluff a fish in position even with the heart blocker, but I am not going to show down my sevens on that board. Can try to fold out queen X or 9X like this, or take away his bluffing opportunity if he's got some kind of busted draw. He, however, puts in a small raise, so I am just going to be way out of the way. River to small flush. Nice of him to show me. The raises from the recreational players on the river usually are not very bluffy, though. Really comes down to if I think he's overvaluing a worse hand. Obviously, with pocket sevens, I don't think he's doing that in that spot, but I could also have some kind of set or something like that, or a strong ace or a two-pair type hand where I'm going to have to talk myself into a crying call. Flushes, of course, I'm very happy to see that mostly raising or jamming my flushes all in over that, especially the big ones. The smaller ones are a bit closer, but against a fish, I'm going to risk value cutting myself in exchange for the chance to take a stack if I've got a strong hand. So mostly be raising my flushes big over that river raise. The left-hand table, the rec limps middle position. I'll complete my small blind with ace-7. I guess I really should have completed the small blind with 8-7 down there, too, and I would have flopped the low end of the straight. In a pot with a bunch of limping recreational players. Lower right-hand table, the recreational player open limps under the gun. I'll isolate from middle position with something like my under the gun range, including queen 10 suited. Big blind calls, as does the limper. Get a lousy board for queen 10, 7-5 for a two-tone where I have no relevant suits in my hand. I will just go ahead and check back. Turn is an 8, offsuit 8 that puts 4 to the straight on the board. Get led into for about half pot by the limp calling player, and I will fold my 2 overcards. Interesting line from the big blind. Check calls, and then donk leads for 75% on that board pairing river. Limp calling player. Folded up pretty quickly against the river bet. Get a 3x open from what is effectively the cutoff on the upper left-hand table. Going to go ahead and 3-bet my small blind with pocket jacks. Recreational player in the big blind cold calls the 3-bet, and the cutoff player folds out. Get a nice board for jacks 10-6 for Rainbow. Will go ahead and lead small against the rec. Lower left-hand table opening Queen 8 suited from the cutoff. Now he goes ahead and min raises me. I've got an overpair with the call. There's about 60 in the pot, 60-61 with a 71 left behind. I am just going to go ahead and reship my jacks on this guy, try to get paid off by a 10x hand. The recreational players in 3-bet pots, when they raise the continuation bets, they tend to be a little bit weaker than they should be. They raise too much, but they also fold against the re-raise or they call rather too much against the re-raise or the reship. So you can go ahead and get some thinner value. Not that jacks is thin value there necessarily, but against those guys, you don't have to be too worried that just because they raised you that they've got something real strong. Upper right-hand table, I got a limper from the cutoff. Going to isolate from the button with Queen Jack using something like my cutoff open range. Face a limp call after the blinds fold. The Ace-9-3 two-tone board, I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. Mostly be checking the turns unless I find a 10 for an open-ended draw. And I take it down. Upper left-hand table will open King 7 suited from the cutoff. Get 3-bet by the small blind, and I will fold that. Upper right-hand table, we got a recreational player again limping under the gun. King 6 suited a little bit too light to be ISOing with from the middle position against a limper. Game quality still looks excellent. Still can't get too much going for me at the same time. Maybe I'm actually the fish in these games, and even though I think it's the other players, it's hard to say. Upper right-hand table, a 2.5x open from the button. I'll go ahead and 3-bet out of my big blind with King 10 suited. Lower left-hand table, a recreational player min raises the button. I will defend my big blind with Jack 10, check range on the flop. Pretty decent flop for Jack 10, giving me the open-ender on King Queen 4 Rainbow. Upper left-hand table, first hand here, get a 3x open, blind on blind. I'm going to go ahead and defend for a call with Jack 10. Get a half pot bet with the facing a half pot bet with my open-ended draw on the lower left-hand table. I'm going to go ahead and check raise that. Get a Queen Jack 4 Rainbow board on the blind battle upper left-hand table. Small blind checks to me. I'll stab for a small size with Queen Jack. Lower left-hand table, the in-position player goes ahead and calls my check raise. Turn is a 7, putting a backdoor flush draw. They still have the open-ender. I'll go ahead and continue barreling with it. Probably not going to bluff off on the river against a fish just because they find a few too many calls. But I still have plenty of equity, can pick up this pot on the turn as well, or can set myself up to win a big pot on the river if I hit my straight. He calls, river bricks out. I'm going to go ahead and surrender, not thinking I get enough folds to justify this against a recreational player. Against a reg, I'm just going to ship the chips in, but I just don't think fish find a way to fold there. Hey, he's got king jack, he's not folding. Don't like to let off the gas on the river, but in a few spots I actually will, and I think that's one that justifies it. Upper left-hand table, 2.5x open from the button. I'll 3-bet my small blind with pocket tens. Lower left-hand table, recreational player, open limps, middle position. I'll pop him up from the button with queen 9 suited using something like my cutoff open range. He limp calls, get a 6-5-4 two-tone board. I do have the flush draw to go with my 2 overcards. He checks, I'll go ahead and range bet small in position. Upper left-hand table, opening king 7 suited from the cutoff. Lower left-hand table, the recreational player limp calls. Turn is a board pairing card, the 5. I think I want to continue betting here. I think I'll just use a half pot size here on that scarier board. Can still get big money in on the river, even using the smaller size on the turn, if I hit. Upper left-hand table, opening queens from under the gun, sizing up slightly as this new player in the cutoff is posting out of position here. Recreational player limp check calls the turn as well. River, I brick out, don't hit my overcards, don't hit my flush. I've got a busted queen high flush draw. We'll be planning to put in a bluff here against this guy as well on the river here with my bricked out hand. Just looking to fold him off some kind of marginal pair or maybe even some kind of ace high draw that didn't come in. Not giving up this one in position here. Upper right hand table, open ace 9 suited under the gun. For left-hand table, the big blind calls, checks to me. I'll range bet small. I've got an overpair on queen 7-3 rainbow. He called me down having rivered that 10. I suppose I don't hate the call with the 10. Although he's really drawing pretty thin there throughout that hand until he hits that particular river card. Upper left-hand table, the big blind check calls. Turn is an 8, puts a backdoor flush draw out there, also makes a straight possible. He leads into me for a small size. He bets about 35-40% a pot, 4.47 into 12.68. I think I should actually go ahead and raise this one. Go ahead and use the half pot size, maybe slightly larger. Upper right-hand table, 3x open from the button, small blind calls. I'm in the big blind with 8-7 suited. And let's see here. Given that these guys are a bit on the passive side, I don't think I want to be squeezing quite as wide as I would against a reg. I'm going to go ahead and flat that, closing the action. Now he leads into me after calling that raise. He leads for half pot. That could be some kind of blocker bet with the jack, so I'm going to hero call that even though I don't love the line. And he's got a busted flush draw. Let's see here. I flop a double gut shot on Jack 9-5, get led into for the minimum by the small blind. I'll just call right here, decide what to do on the turn. Follow through with my busted bluff on the lower right-hand table with 9 high. Take that one down. Let's see. On the upper right-hand table, everyone called that min bet turn. It checks to me. I'm going to go ahead and stab small with my draw. Plan to follow through on the river, whether I hit or whether I whiff. Probably betting big if I hit my straight, and just betting smaller against the fish if I don't. I don't king river. I've got 8 high in my hand. I will go ahead and continue bluffing with my busted draw, and I take that one down too. Upper left-hand table will open kings blind on blind. Upper left-hand table will open ace-king from the middle position. Lower right-hand table open in tens under the gun. Upper left-hand table open in ace-queen under the gun. With the tens in the lower right-hand table, got called by recreational players in both middle position and the big blind. I will check range sandwiched between 2 players. Flop checks through. I now got a pair on king, king, deuce, queen, full rainbow board. I'm going to go ahead and start leading out small. The ace-queen faces a 3-bet from the small blind. I'll go ahead and put in a 4-bet with ace-queen. Lousy river there on the lower right-hand table. Trying to decide if there's merit in turning this into a bluff to try to fold out jack-high or ace-high. Probably not. Probably rather just try to show it on against a busted pocket pair. My 4-bet gets called, get a queen 5-5 two-tone board, and he overbets on the double paired board. I've got 10 high. I will just go ahead and quickly fold. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small bet here with the ace-queen. I can have queens full. I can have kings, aces. I can have ace-queen for top pair, top kicker. I guess I don't have queens full. I would trap that pre-flop. But I've got ace-queen offsuit. I've got kings and aces. That's a very strong flop for me. And ace-king suited is my weakest hand, although that's got a flush draw in a quarter of the time. Lower left-hand table, get an under-the-gun recreational player limps. I'll pop him up from the cutoff with ace-10, use like my middle position open range. Recreational player calls in the big blind. The limper also calls. I flop the nuts. King, queen, jack, rainbow. I have ace-10 for the Broadway straight. Checks to me. I'll go ahead and put in a small bet. Neither range betting nor range checking in position multi-way, but with the nuts, I'm of course going to start getting some money in there. Using the small sizes, we're multi-way. Small blind goes ahead and check calls. Turn is a 10. Lousy turn card is there's now a 4 straight for me, and my ace is very, very obvious. I'm going to bet some ace-x and check some ace-x for the straight here. I think the better ace-x's to check are the ones that also have a pair, as those block some of the more likely call-downs where the naked ace-x is not going to block anything that might decide to bluff catch. I will go ahead and check back my ace-10 here. Now there's a straight on the board. With that 9, and he's a fish, so maybe he might think that he has a chop and not realize I've got the ace-x a lot of the time here. And he goes ahead and blasts for pot. Just going to go ahead and put in a small raise here, hit the half pot button, hope he just calls thinking I'm bluffing. Lower left-hand table, or upper left-hand table, I open king, queen from the cutoff. A fish in the small blind calls. I again flop the nuts straight. He reships on me. I will call down with my ace. We're chopping against ace-king. Lousy turn there, as I could have got some more value from that guy if the board didn't counterfeit me, but that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Upper right-hand table will isolate the middle position limper from the button with 9s using something like a cutoff open range. Get 3-bet by the big blind. I don't know that these are particularly loose. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to be folding hands like pocket 9s necessarily to about a 4x size bet. Call with a lot of my suited broadways and mid pairs. 4-bet kings, aces, ace-king suited. Ace-king off and queens can kind of go either way. Maybe queen 7 deuce rainbow board. Decent board for 9s. He leads out for 1/3. I'm along for a call. Turn is an 8. He checks. I will check back. Could have, some queen X top pair, maybe sets of queens if I don't 3-bet him pre-flop. Can have some 7s or 8s. Probably won't have deuces, but river's the king. I'm going to take my showdown. He got queen 9, so flop top pair. I think his play is just fine. Lower left-hand table, a rec open limps to cutoff. I'm going to pop them up out of my small blind with pocket eights. This one's pretty close, but I think it's a little better to ISO. I usually would limp in behind with sevens or worse and pop up eights or better. Something along those lines is going to be pretty reasonable and close to correct, though. Lower right-hand table, get a middle position recreational player limp. Small blind completes. I'll check in with 9-8. Upper right-hand table, face a raise from the cutoff or re-raise from the button. I will fold 6-5 suited. Upper left-hand table, opening queen 9 from the button. Lower right-hand table will open king 5 suited from the button. Face a small 3-bet from a recreational player in the small blind, pops it up from 250 to 5. Will, of course, defend with pretty much everything against that size. Monotone flop, but wrong suit, diamonds, jack 6-4, and I was looking for the hearts. He mashes the pot button, and with my king high, I will fold. Upper right-hand table, open jacks from the cutoff. Upper right-hand table will open king 7 suited from middle position. Lower right-hand table, the middle position player limps. I'll isolate from the cutoff with ace-king suited using something like my middle position open range. It's 3-bet in position. I had this guy tagged as a rec, but that doesn't actually seem accurate here as time has evolved. Uses a size that I really can't defend against either out of position. Go ahead and fold that. My isolation raise got called by the rec in position and by a limper. I've got 2 overcards and a backdoor flush draw on queen jack 3 rainbow. I'll check range sandwich between the 2 players. In position player mashes the pot button. And the limp calling player behind me calls. You know, I've got a hand I want to continue with. For that size, I think I need to fold here. And of course, the 10 shows up on the turn, immediately making me second-guess my decision. But I do think check calling a pot-size bet there is a little bit tricky out of position, even with a hand like 2 overcards, gut shot, and backdoor flush draw. Lower left-hand table, open 6s in middle position, big blind calls. I'll range bet him small after he checks flop on 7-4 deuce. Turn is a 7 of diamonds. My 6s are likely still good against everything except the 7 that was already beating me, or the flush draw that came in. I'm going to go ahead and use a half-pot bet here to get value from the weaker pairs that won't necessarily fold. Some kind of weird random overcards that have 1 diamond. Mostly checking back the river unless I can hit a full house with a 6. I guess even a 7 wouldn't be a bad card to value bet, but really checking back the other rivers from there. Diamonds I may even turn into a bluff. Opening queens from middle position on the lower left-hand table. That's a good flop for queens. Ace, queen, queen for quads on the two-tone board. Checks to me. We'll go ahead and put in a small bet. Get called. Now, I don't think this guy has ever folded an ace-x hand or a flush draw, at least against a reasonable size. Where I would check back to trap against regs. I'm against a player that's playing 90 or 70, 19, 40% limbs, probably has a ton of ace-x in his range. I want to go ahead and try to get some more value, so I'm going to go ahead and use a smaller bet size here that flush draws and ace-x will never fold to. And he goes ahead and puts in a check raise. Happy to see that, getting another 12 or so blinds in on this turn. I will call that in position. Give him a chance to do something stupid on the river. Now he checks. We got a little more than 2x pot left. He's obviously not paying me off with the busted draw. I think he's going to be relatively inelastic to my sizing, meaning he's going to largely call with ace-x regardless of the size. He will call a bit less against the overbets, but I don't think it's going to be enough to make a difference. I think the way I get most value here is by just moving all in for 2x pot, representing the bluff, and hoping he just hero calls me with ace-x. Doesn't work, but I stand by the play. Upper right-hand table, middle position opens 3x. I am on my button with King 10 suited. Going to go ahead and 3-bet this guy in position. Lower left-hand table, 2.5x open from middle position. Rex in the cutoff and button both call. I don't really call my small blind very much, but with a couple of Rex in that pot, I will call with the suited king, trying to get in there and hit something good. The upper right-hand table, my 3-bet gets called, get a 4-3 deuce rainbow board. I do have a backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and range bet him small here after he calls. He check calls. Turn is the 7. I just don't know that I'm going to fold out too many overpairs here by barreling. I could have variety of spade-type hands that can be barreling. I can have ace-5. I can have some other ace-x type hands. Do I want to really put the king 10 into the barreling line here? I think I'll check it back. Hit a king on the river and either bluff, catch, or value bet. Upper left-hand table will open ace-3 suited blind on blind. Lower right-hand table will complete my small blind with ace-4 suited after the button limps. Now he goes ahead and he bets about half pot. I'm trying to decide if I want to raise this all in or not. I think I do. And that was for value in case that wasn't crystal clear. I was trying to get the middle pairs that are blocking to level themselves into paying off when they bet small and face that raise. slightly thin, but I don't think it's necessarily too bad. I mean, I guess I can also even have some traps. I mean, I probably just keep barreling with the flop straight, but I guess a hand like aces could possibly check back that turn. Aces or maybe even kings, so I can have those hands that can also raise for value. I think aces is a real good turn check back, actually, to have some strong hands in your check back line that also are very protected. Not too many bad cards for it. I want to have some ace X in both the betting and checking line there, as as aces drawing to the wheel on a 5. And I think the unpaired ace king, ace queen, ace jack, ace 10 are going to be more reasonable turn barrels than pocket aces. Or actually, a better way to say that would be that the unpaired ace X hands on that board are going to play better in the barrel line as opposed to the check back line. If I want to have some aces in the check back line, aces like pocket aces or maybe ace 4 for a pair on the gut shot make a bit more sense than hands like ace queen, ace jack, ace 10. If you want to tell me ace king high has showdown value and you check that one back on the turn, ace king, ace queen, I suppose I could buy into that a little bit too. Pretty aggressive, could be doing that with nonsense. I'm going to go ahead and put in the raise here, try to take that away against that small size. And it works. Lower right-hand table, a rec open limps the button. I'll pop him up from the small blind with ace-queen. It's in a tight, linear, value-heavy range. He limp calls. We have 2 overcards on jack 7-4 rainbow. I'll go ahead and range bet him small. Turn is a 3. I think I'm going to go ahead and continue barreling aggressively just because my overcards are going to be pretty good here a lot of the time. I also got strong removal to the jack. Go ahead and use a half pot size just to give myself a better price on the bluff. Kind of exploitive nonsense against the fish, but they're fish. That's what we do to them. River's the ace on that flush closing river. He's got about 1.75x pot left. I mean, I guess he could have a real strong hand here, but I think I just want to go ahead and blast him all in. And nah, I'll bet smaller. Betting smaller is going to get me called a lot more than the all in here. And I like that barreling the overcards there better than check folding the turn or putting myself into a guessing game where I'm trying to hero call and check call lines with ace queen high. Upper left-hand table, a small open blind on blind, 2.5x. 5-3 kind of on the cusp of defense there. I'm going to fold it, but it's really close against that small size. Upper right, or lower right-hand table, rather, opening king-queen suited from the cutoff. Big blind calls me, pretty decent flop for king-queen, king 4-4 rainbow. I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet here. Lower left-hand table, opening ace-king from the button. Upper left-hand table, opening queen 10 from the button. On the lower right-hand table, my ace-king faces a 3-bet from the big blind. A reasonably standard reg, maybe a little bit on the passive side with his opens, but he's been 3-betting pretty aggressively. I'm going to treat this as a more or less a standard spot. Go ahead and just 4-bet my ace-king and plan to get that in. 4-betting queens plus ace-king here to stack off with. Maybe mix in something like ace-jack offsuit is a pretty reasonable bluff. Good removal, not quite good enough to call. My 4-bet gets called. Get a queen 9-5 two-tone board. I've got the backdoor nut flush draw blocker as well. I'm going to go ahead and put in that small range bet. Keep barreling with the ace-7. Try to fold the imposition player off a marginal pair. Get check shipped on, so I will fold my ace-king high. Lower left-hand table, we get the under-the-gun player. I guess he's really in middle position. He limps. I'll isolate from what's effectively the button with something like my cutoff open range. I've got king-jack suited here. Get limp called, 8-5-5 rainbow board. I've got overcards and a backdoor flush draw. He checks. Put in that small range bet. Comes along for a call. The 7 doesn't do a whole lot for my hand or really for my range here. I guess I could have hands like trip 5s, 8s full, 7s full. Don't really have any straights here. Upper left-hand table, I'll open ace-queen from the cutoff. I think I'll go ahead and check this back and look to decide on the river. Hit a pair to value bet, bluff catch, could possibly bluff raise or bluff unimproved. For left-hand table, opening king 6 suited from middle position. Now he goes ahead and bets for half pot. Go ahead and put the move on him. Upper right-hand table, open 8-7 suited from the button. Big blind calls, get a queen 8-4 two-tone board. I'll go ahead and put in the small range bet in position. Get check called. Not a great card for me. The 10 puts a backdoor flush draw up there to go with the front door flush draw. Straights are now possible. The gut shot straights now have better pairs. I'm going to go ahead and check back my 8. Upper left-hand table, going to open aces from the cutoff. A bluff raise got through against the fish. Gotta like seeing that. He leads into me. He leads about 60% a pot. I don't think this is good enough to show down, but I do think it's good enough to bluff raise. Upper left-hand table, going to go ahead and check range the imposition player. I've got aces on a scary coordinated board, 8-7-6. He goes ahead and stabs for 2/3. No reason to check raise. Really no great cards for my aces except maybe literally the ace of clubs. Go ahead and check call. Look for clean runouts, keep the pot small. Not what I'm looking for. The 5 of hearts, putting a flush closer and a 4 straight board out there. Go ahead and check fold against the second barrel now with the aces. Can't make hands, but at least my river bluffs are getting through a decent bit, so. Got a 3x open from the button on the upper left-hand table. I am in the big blind with pocket sixes. This one's kind of on the cusp. I'm going to go ahead and put in the 3-bet. If it's close, go ahead and raise. Upper right-hand table and open kings under the gun. I'm going to look to shut this session down here as I'm about that time. Go ahead and take a little break. For left-hand table, we'll open ace-jack from the button. Face a small 3-bet there, just over 3x size from the small blind. Guy seems pretty reggish. Let's see here, against the 3.5x 3-bet from regs, I can just defend that for a call with ace-jack. I really don't even have ranges for 3x 3-bet out of position. Is just such a small size. I can continue with all kinds of nonsense. He goes ahead and he blasts for half pot. Continue floating with my ace-jack high. And he blasts for 2/3 on the turn. On that 6, doesn't do a lot for me. I could have all kinds of way better hands. There's no great cards for me as that board gets scarier, although the overcards are probably still mostly live. But against that size, and I want to be calling withdrawals that are a bit more robust than overcards. That's the last hand of the session. I'm shutting down for now. Thank you very much for watching. Till next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off.